right. We're going for one. Well, that's right. The New York Giants are going to go for the first overall pick. Hopefully, but they're not. Because right now, they're in third. This is Tim's New York Giants Trade Talk, powered by Online Big Blue LLC. Want to talk about, of course, we have to do stupid Giants Twitter posts. Want to talk about how people are now saying that we're more than a quarterback away. And I want to talk about the draft in general. I just love the pundits, and I love Phil Simms. Phil Simms is one of my favorite Giants of all time. I remember when they drafted him back in '79 out of Morehead State. I'll always remember that. I have my autographed Phil Simms helmet, life-size helmet, right alongside of me. But Phil Simms is now saying the Giants are not a quarterback away. So maybe they need to move on. They've never been just a quarterback away. Wow. This is where we've come from with the Daniel Jones effect right now. Right now, we are currently sitting in third. You have the Jacksonville Jaguars ahead of us, along with the Las Vegas Raiders, and it's the Giants, New England Patriots, Carolina Panthers, New York Jets, Titans, Browns, Saints, and the Bengals sitting at 10. Right now, you need to. I don't think Jacksonville is going to take a quarterback. I still think they're going to be all in with Trevor Lawrence, only because they gave him all that money. The Raiders are definitely taking a quarterback. I think Sanders will probably end up there, which means the Giants, if it continues to sit at 3, will have the opportunity to draft a quarterback. And I still think it should be Cam Ward. Why I love Sanders' ability, why I love his talent, there are some things that make me pause. And we've talked about this before. We've done the video before. He's the son of the head coach for the last 2 stops. His expectations are different than normal players when daddy's the coach, because you get away with a lot more. And I don't think a lot of that's going to fly in New York. And I don't think it's one of these things that's going on with Malik Neighbors. The same thing can happen with Kayvon Thibodeau. And like I said, I am loud, I am boisterous, I am cocky. But I've said this before. You can be all those things, but you need to back it up. Kayvon Thibodeau, when he first came here, I'm going to get a sack a game. I'm getting 16 sacks. Because when we played 16 games. What did he have, 5.5? And then he actually had a good season where majority of his sacks came in 3 games, where he had like 7 sacks in 3 games. And, Malik Neighbors, I don't care. The team wants me to talk. I don't remember anyone on the team telling you to talk. But I don't care about drops. Well, that's good because you're second in the NFL in drops. You can back up your you look at Brian Thomas Jr. yesterday. I think he had 6 catches for 72 yards in Jacksonville, and Mac Jones. Or is it Matt Jones? No, Matt Jones was the other. No, it is Mac Jones, because Matt Jones was the other old Jacksonville Jaguar wide receiver, former quarterback at I believe it was Arkansas. But he had a touchdown with Jones under quarterback. Okay, all right. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm going to throw out there. But now, like I said, I think Travis Hunter will probably go 1. I think you're going to get Sanders probably 2. I have no problem with the Giants selecting Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward reminds me. He reminds me of Charlie Ward. To be honest, I've talked about this before. He kind of reminds me of Charlie Ward. His abilities, his style of play, the way he sees the field. And I wish Charlie had the opportunity to play in this league. I really do. And I've talked about this before, and I'm kind of getting off topic here, but you know what? That's just what we do here. Charlie Ward, to me, he never got his shot because he was basically told, because he was an African-American quarterback, that he wasn't going to get drafted as high. And he felt that he should have been. And, of course, he went over and played for the Knicks for a bunch of seasons. But he had this ability. There was just something about him. And the way he played that final year, the way he played that Heisman year, he just had this look about him. He had this look if he was in this year's draft, not in the 93 draft, with his almost 70% completion percentage, over 3,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, ran for another 339, he would probably be a top 3 pick. He had this ability, he had this escapability, he had this je ne sais quoi. He had this understanding, this feel for the college game. And it was just the fact that, like I said, he just didn't get the opportunity to play. He went, He went 26 overall in the first round in the 1994 NBA draft. He was just a guy, like I said, he was a guy in Charlie Ward that came out the wrong time in life. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes you just don't, you just don't get those opportunities that you deserve. And he came out and said, unless the NFL is considering selecting me in the first round, he was going to go. He was going to go play basketball, which he did, and I don't blame him. But like I said, he had that ability, he had the escapability, he had that charisma about him. You looked at him, it's funny because they're both 6'2". You look at him, you see the way that he played, Charlie Ward. And like I said, when I watched Cam Ward the other day, even in the loss to Syracuse when he had over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions, he just has this feel about him. He has this feel for the game. I always laugh and I always say, because Daniel Jones was a point guard that couldn't create his own shot. And it's funny that Charlie Ward was a point guard. But Cam Ward and Charlie Ward have that same thing that just makes them special. You could see it. They both look down the field. They both have the escapability. They both have the running ability. They both have that persona. And like I said, I personally think, I'm going to say it over and over again, if we got Sanders, I would not be upset. If we got Cam Ward, I would be more happy if we ended up getting Cam Ward. But like I said, we got to kind of wait and see. We got to wait and see how this shakes out. We got a long way to go before the end of the season. So, Lord knows, hell, we may end up finishing, I don't know. We may end up finishing 5th. I don't know. We have to just kind of wait and see. But are we ready? Are we ready for it now, guys? Are we ready for it? Because you know what time it is.
Stupid Giant Twitter post.
Oh, this one is going to come from all of our favorite Art Stapleton. That wonderful paid-for Giant beat writer. He came out and said, it was a simple post. He goes, George Young is the GM for the Giants. First 5 years and he posted the record. And he goes 79, 6-10, 80, 4-12, 81, 9-7, 82, 4-5, 83, 3-12-1. And that 83 season, you're supposed to go, oh, look how bad they were, and they turned the corner. And I said this in my post, and someone didn't get it. I said, you need to add a lot of context to this post. And I even said, not sure where to start, but I found this. This will be found on my Monday podcast, Stupid Post of the Day. Because of the fact that if you look at this post, it's very misleading. First of all, let's go to the fact that there was no free agency. There was no salary cap to screw up. You had 12 picks in the draft each year. And the Giants had the Giants, why they were a horrid team in the 70s, a bad team in the 70s, they still had some promise. They are just as bad as Giant was, but by the end of the 70s, they were turning that corner. They were making that ability. They were going there, because if you literally go and look at George Young's first couple drafts, you're not impressed. It wasn't until the 83 draft. I mean, outside of a couple picks here and there, because Lawrence Taylor pick was in there as well. But if you go back and take a look at going through the 79 draft, I mean, yeah, you had Phil Simms in there as well, but Phil Simms took a little while to mature and maturate. But we all do, and why? More likely that had to do with injuries. But like I say, if you take a look at his first draft, Phil Simms, Ernest Gray. Ernest Gray had 1,000 yards one season, had 3,000, almost 4,000 total yards for the Giants, but nothing special. And really, outside of like the likes of Roy Simmons, who was an offensive lineman, who, he played guard for, I don't forget how many seasons, like 3-4 seasons with the Giants, there was really no keepers in the 79 draft. You go into the 80 draft. Mark Haynes was I believe, a 2-time All-Pro Bowler for the Giants. But then he kind of floundered a little bit. We ended up trading him over to the Denver Broncos back in 86, where we faced him in the Super Bowl. But outside of that draft, you had the likes of Danny Pittman. He had like almost 700 yards receiving. Scott Bruner. Scott Bruner, of course, ended up leading the Giants into the playoffs in 81. But then that was it. There's nothing special. You go to the 81 draft. You had Lawrence Taylor. Outside of the Lawrence Taylor, maybe Bill Neal, the nose tackle. Nothing else. Mark Reed. You also had, well, I shouldn't really say that because later in the draft you had Bill Ard. Bill Ard was part of the Suburbanites. You had Byron Hunt, the linebacker who played a bunch of years for the Giants. Good backup linebacker. But again, really nothing special outside of Lawrence Taylor. Yes, and Lawrence Taylor is that Pro Bowler, or is that All-Pro, is that Hall of Famer? But you'll take it. Are you seeing a pattern here? And you even go into his 82 draft when he selected Butch Woolfolk and Joe Morris, 1 and 2, first and second round. Yeah, Joe Morris, that was a good hit. That was a hit. That was a solid triple. Butch Woolfolk was, Butch Woolfolk is what it is. He kind of burned out, flamed out in New York, ended up going to Houston, had, I believe, 80 receptions one season, but nothing special. It wasn't until he hit that 83 stride where he, if you take a look at it, in 83, he had Kennard, Leonard Marshall, Carl Nelson, Kevin Belcher, who was a center. People probably don't remember him. Perry Williams, the corner. Andy Hedden, Ali Haji Sheik, Robbie Jones. All guys that were outside of Ali Haji Sheik were contributors to the Super Bowl team. And it wasn't again until he hit the 84 stride where he took Banks, Roberts, and Hosteller. He also had Conrad Goody, the tackle, played some games with the Giants, and also had Gary Reasons. So if you take a look at his early drafts, he probably, if it was this time of year, I mean, not this time of year, but if it was nowadays, he would have been fired. But the Giants still had the ability to win some games in the 70s when they went out and got Ray Perkins. People forget. You know who Ray Perkins hired? Ray Perkins hired Bill Belichick and Bill Parcells. And I believe Romeo Cornell, I can't ever say Romeo's name. Romeo as well. So he hired the coaching staff before, he made that 9-7 run and made the playoffs in 81. And then after, 83, he went over and decided to coach Alabama. And then you also look at the likes of the 83 season, because that's a 3-12-1 season. I remember the 83 season. I remember the 83 season clearly. But they had talent on that 1983 team. I've said this before with the Giants. The Giants were not, this year, the Giants are not a 2-win team. Said it over and over again. They are maybe a 3-1. They're a 5-win team, maybe a 6-win team. They are not a 2-win team. And I know the neophytes over in the Twitter space are going to be like, well, that doesn't make sense to them. Well, yeah, it does. Because the Giants in 1983 were not a 3-win team. You had the likes of, on that team still, Rob Carpenter, Ernest Gray, Tom Mulledy, Brad Benson, who was on the 86 Giants, Bill Ard, 86 Giants. You still had the likes of Gordon King, who was a pretty good right tackle. Not great, but a good right tackle. And you also still had the likes of, what's his name, T.J. Turner. But you also, on defense, had some other 86ers with Curtis McGriff, Jerome Salley. You had one of the best linebacking cores in the league, and Van Pelt, Kelly, Carsons, and Taylor. You had the Pro Bowler and All-Pro Mark Haynes. You had Terry Jackson, who played well at right corner, not great. You had Bill Curry, he was also on that 86 team, and Terry Kennard. This was not a 3-win team. The reason why they were a 3-win team is they went with Scott Bruner, who threw for 2,516 yards and 9 touchdowns and 22 interceptions, because they decided not to go with Phil Simms. And, of course, Phil Simms busted his thumb up in that Philadelphia game. And that kind of, sent Bill Parcells down a spiral. And Bill Parcells said, you know what? If I'm going to come back in 84, I'm going to do it my way. And that's what he did. And he led the Giants, of course, 9-7, 4,000 yards. First Giants throw for over 4,000 yards. And the likes of Phil Simms. But, hey. Sorry, Art. All right, Art. You're not putting shit in the context. You're not putting shit in the context. The Giants were already building coming out of that 79 season. They were already building. Or I should say coming out of the 78 season. They were already building. They were going to take some time, but they did it right. And like I said, it wasn't until that 83 draft did George Young really start striking gold and start putting together a team. But he had a good nucleus in 83, which propelled the team in 84. You know what was also on? Just going to throw this out here because these are other 86ers. Brad Benson was on that team. Jim Burt was on the team. Should we continue on some other guys that were on the team that were main contributors to the 86 team? Or George Martin was on the team? Leonard Marshall was on the team? Do we want to just continue? No, we don't want to just continue. Joe Morris was on that 83 team. We don't want to just keep going because of the fact that it just makes too much sense sometimes. And also the Giants started some terrible quarterbacks. We had Jeff Rutledge starting in 83 at one point in time. I think I would have cried. Like I said, I always tell the story that I cried when I got the Craig Morton jersey. But I cried still watching Bruner and Rutledge play. So teams need to be built the right way. And you could say whatever you want about the Giants. You can say anything you want about how the Giants are being built. They're just not being built the right way. We've talked about this a million times. They're a cut and paste talented team. They have talent that doesn't go together and is trying to be held together by duct tape. And this starts from the general manager. And with the likes of Art Stapleton and Carl Banks, you got to bring these guys back. We've gotten progressively worse every time we fired somebody. Maybe we've gotten progressively worse because the people we've brought in are not good talent evaluators. They're not good at salary cap management. They're not good at managing the roster, picking the coaching staff, filling out their scouting department. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe we just keep picking the wrong guys. And the thing is this, you cannot keep quadrupling down on the same mistakes. You don't want to hear it. You want to hear something that's really going to make you cry? If Daniel Jones dresses for one game with Minnesota this year and he goes on and it's free agency and signs with someone else, the Vikings get a compensatory pick. Just throwing that out there. Just throwing that out there. If you want to cry a little bit, it's time to stop with this. You can't do this. You can't do that. That's not the right way to do it. And I love it because when I compare, you know what kills me about Art Stapleton and these other people? When I compare things to like the 80s and the 90s, I always get told, well, you're just an old head. That's a different era. But then I go on Twitter and I see people comparing things to the 80s and 90s to prove their point. So what's the fucking difference? Could you explain to me the difference? Because I don't fucking see it. Maybe I am old.
Get off my lawn.
And maybe you should all get off my lawn, which is going to be coming back in a couple weeks. Get off my lawn, the Matt Remley of Gen Xer. I don't know. I don't know. I watch this team. I see where we're floundering. I see how we just need to kind of figure it out. And I think the easiest way to figure it out, if we don't win any games this season, the easiest way to figure it out is just get the fucking rid of everybody. Start anew, start fresh. Bring in an actual, we said it before, bring in an actual president of football operations who can hire the GM, who can oversee the GM, the head coach, and the entire operation itself. Remove John Mara from that title, and let's just burn it down and start it from the top. Why not? We already suck. How much worse can we be? A 2-win team? Oh, you gotta love it, guys. This is Tim's New York Giants Straight Talk, powered by Online Big Blue LLC, and I'm out of here.